Hello, everyone, and welcome to our final SU Grad 22 Success Week program. For today, I'm so thrilled to introduce my colleague, Roshni D, who has dedicated over 20 years to educating and serving populations in higher education, K through 12, museums, and the U.S. military. In her current role as the Assistant Director for Alumni Career Services, West Coast with Syracuse University, she lives out her passion for providing people with career enhancement and professional development experiences through a DEI lens. Prior to her role with Syracuse University, she served as a Director for Career Planning and Employer Relations at Marymount California University, where she has also taught career courses and served on the university's very first DEI committee. In her previous roles, she has designed exhibitions and educational programming for the Smithsonian Institute and the National Institute of Health, traveled to colleges to promote internships in DC and the Washington Center, and served as a civilian career counsel in Seoul, South Korea for the U.S. military service members. Roshni is from the Los Angeles area on the sunny West Coast and has earned her bachelor's in anthropology with a minor in Scandinavian studies from UCLA. She has her master's in museum studies from the George Washington University and a master's in education from Claremont Graduate University. And not only that, she is currently working on her PhD in higher education from CGU. So with that, I would like to welcome Roshni, who will be giving today's presentation.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Grace, and thank you for having me here today. I greatly appreciate it, and thank you, Kate, for also being here. Just thanks to the team for supporting this wonderful event. And thank you to our captioner, Sally, as well. So welcome, everyone. Congratulations to you. I hope that you celebrated and are still celebrating this monumental accomplishment for graduating and having a degree. So kudos to you. Now, this is the very beginning. It seems like it's scary, a little bit intimidating, but that's what we're going to talk about today. So we will get over that fear. We will become empowered and we'll be ready to tackle this lifelong process of career development because it never stops. It's ever evolving, just like you are, just like your identity is. And so we will go along the way to look at the steps that we'll take to be able to evolve along with that career process. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and please, as Grace already mentioned, feel free to drop questions in the chat and even raise your hand. Like, I'm okay with all of that. Okay. All right, so we're all looking at this title slide, yes? Okay, great. So these are really three valuable questions to ask yourself. I know that it's really easy to get caught up and say, I just need any job, right? I've just graduated. I just need anything. I'm going to take anything. And, you know, if that is your situation, then that is what it is for now. And perhaps you'll have to act accordingly. But if you have a little bit of flexibility, then I highly encourage you to sit down with yourself and be able to answer these three questions. And we're going to go through what it means to get involved in that sort of self-assessment process. So I do want to start off by letting everybody know about the career services that are available to you as alumni for your life for free. It's sort of a daily occurrence when I'm meeting with alumni. I didn't know I could do this. I didn't know you guys offer this. And we want to make sure that we get the word out so everybody is informed that indeed these alumni career services do exist. And we're here to assist you, as I said, with that lifelong process of career development. So we have Hire Orange, which is our online job board exclusively for our Syracuse alumni to access and view positions that are available. Any kind of employer partner can post there, but the beauty of Hire Orange is that most of the postings are from alumni looking to hire and support fellow alumni. So you already have that inside edge. You have that networking tip there. There's also the contact information and name of the person who's actually posted the position, so you can reach out directly. That's something you never get from a typical job board like a LinkedIn or an Indeed. You'll never see that in a posting. So definitely access Hire Orange, and you do that by visiting this CUSE community site here, which if Grace would love to drop in the chat, that would be fantastic. And you would just sign up and create your alumni account, and you could get your alumni ID from us, no problem, and then you're ready to go to log into Hire Orange. We have a number of other resources available to you, so become familiar with the Advance Your Career tab. and look at the career resource library. You can use resume tailoring tools such as JobScan. Big Interview is an excellent automated tool that helps you practice your interviewing skills, gives you feedback on your responses. You can watch your recording and read your transcript. We also do, of course, one-on-one appointments. That's a bulk of what we do. So you can always schedule to meet with us. We'll help you and assist you with whatever your career enhancement needs are. Everything from career exploration to I found the job I want to apply for. Can you do a mock interview? So we're here to help with all of that. We do workshops. In the past few months, we had 3 workshops. One was on writing cover letters, one was on interviewing, and another one was about career exploration. We also have, as I mentioned, this CUSE community page, which in addition to the career resource library, has a number of other resources available to you. How to join an alumni club, which everyone should do for their region so that you're connected that way and engaging in networking and that solidarity of the Orange Nation, staying informed about the events that we have, both virtual and in person. So again, just checking out all those tabs. We do have an alumni mentoring program. It's informal, but it is a way for you to connect with fellow alumni who've agreed to provide tips and advice and be a mentor. So that's information you can always get from me directly if you want to look into that. I mentioned the alumni clubs, and then stay connected with the school or the college that you graduated from. They also have their career services still, and they're always looking to support their alumni. So these are things to keep informed about and keep aware of. So I'm not going to bore you with, what's a theoretical framework? Why is she talking to us about this? I feel that it is important as myself, as somebody who is a career coach, career counselor, somebody who is in position to give advice and guidance, that I let people know where I'm coming from, the way that I frame my approaches when I work with my clients, when I deliver my workshops, when I create kind of resource guides. My approaches are set and largely in these sort of career counseling approaches and just approaches to being able to have a relationship and engaging with folks. And these will be helpful for you as well, because if you have that kind of understanding, then you can see, all right, I get the process now, and I know what it means to engage in self-reflection and look at what career self-efficacy means. What does that mean to have confidence in my own career decision-making process? What are the factors that are influencing my decision to choose a career path or my decisions overall, period? And so looking at these sort of frameworks, again, it's what helps me with my approach, working with diverse groups of people, and especially relational cultural theory, which I'll touch on a little bit more when I talk about networking and what it means to have a mutually respectful relationship where both parties are engaging. So what do I want? Why do I want it, right? And what am I worth? Part of that is being able to understand, what are my identity? What influences my identity, period? What factors play into my identity? And when you can sit down and sort of assess that and figure that out, you'll go through this process of asking yourself these questions, and then you get a solid foundation of who you are. So who are you? It's where you have come from, it's where you are now, and it's where you're going. And it's how you're going to get there. So starting out, just thinking a little bit about, well, what role does my family and my community, my culture play? What does that mean? Have I been juggling identities throughout school, right? Was I sacrificing part of myself to fit in with the majority? What does it mean to be able to honor who I am and where I came from, whether that's your race, ethnicity, your culture, your religion, whatever it may be? How do I honor that? And keep those values sacred to me while also existing in a space that might be contrary to my customs, contrary to my identity. And so how do I choose a career that resonates with and respects my values, my beliefs, my identity? That's a very difficult thing to be able to do and assess, to make sure that you're choosing that career path that aligns with who you are. That's going to give you that sense of joy, fulfillment, confidence, and empowerment. It doesn't matter if you're entry level, it doesn't matter if you're the CEO, you need to be able to have that type of feeling about the work that you do. And I know that people say your work doesn't define you. It's really interesting because we even heard that earlier in the week from another panelist. And I take an approach of, it actually does, because you do it 90% of your day. If you think about it, the job that you do, it has a lot to do with who you are. You're spending a lot of time on it. And because you're spending a lot of time on it and a lot of energy and a lot of effort, this is why it's so important to be able to choose that path that really does align with who you are and honors who you are. And so again, some things to think about, what is it that influences this says career decision-making process, but it really is your daily sort of life decision-making process. How do I decide these things? What matters to me? What is influencing how I determine where I'm going to go eat? If I want to go to school, if I want to keep getting a degree, and what kind of job I want to have. So just some things to think about there. Okay. Again, the idea of being able to identify your values, be firm in who you are in your identity, and then choose your career path accordingly. This is all about story sharing. So I know the common term is storytelling. I like to say story sharing because to me, it denotes just a much more engaging and participatory process. So instead of just, I'm going to tell you my story, so you sit there while I tell you, the story sharing sounds like I'm going to share my story and then you're going to share your story and we're all going to get to know each other. So what I encourage you to do is reflect upon your story sharing. So what does that mean exactly? All right, what's your origin story? Of course, I have to say origin story because, Marvel Comics and DC Comics are all the rave. So think about that. What is your origin story? So who are you, right? Where are you from? Where did you grow up? What made you who you are today? What contributed to that? And again, where are you going and how do you plan to get there? So when you're mapping out your own narrative and you're thinking about how you're going to tell your story, you have to sit down and think about your values, your beliefs. What are your priorities, your passions, your interests? What have I done? What are my accomplishments, my experience? What do I want to contribute? What do I want to contribute to myself? What do I want to contribute to my family, my community, the world at large? These are things to consider and think about. It's essential to have this foundation, this solid sense of self, in order for you to be able to own your story. So it's not just sharing your story, telling your story, it's owning your story and being able to hold strong to that throughout your entire career process. So your narrative and that story sharing, it begins when you're searching for the job. Because when you're looking through a job posting and a job description, you need to be able to decipher, is this going to be a good place for me? Right? Is this going to be a place where I can soar and excel, where I can be authentic, where I can feel secure? You'll already be able to sort of decipher that once you have this sense of self just by reading a job description. Then you're going to hold true to your story and tell it in your resume. You're most definitely going to tell your story in your cover letter, which I'll get into a little bit later. And then you'll tell it in the interview because you'll be representing yourself and who you are, and you'll keep your story in the job that you land in your career forever. And as your story evolves, your career development will evolve, your identity will evolve. It's all going to be fluid and fluctuating depending on what stage you are in your life. So it's good to revisit this narrative, right? Your story will change as your life will change. So it's good to revisit. And in revisiting, that means you also need to revisit your values and your priorities. Your priorities will absolutely change. Some of you were looking at that baby bottle thinking like, that's not on my list of priorities right now. But it could be someday. So just think about what matters to you, right? For some people, it's solely the paycheck. Great, good for you. You know it, more power to you. For others, it's I need to be able to have flexibility to pick my children up from school whenever I need to. So that could be hybrid work. That could just be, flexible workspace. So whatever it is that truly matters to you, that's what you need to sit down and assess and make a list. So what about my identity and my culture? What about my own mental health, my self-care? How do my family and the relationships I want to have factor in? Do I want to travel? How important are the finances? For some people, that's not the deciding factor. Good for them, right? Where do I want to live? What type of work? Again, do I need more education? Do I need to upskill? So it's really important to sit down and assess this about yourself. And then you're going to look at all these questions and say, does she really want us to answer these touchy-feely questions? Like, what is this, right? What am I going to sit down and talk about who inspires me? Yes, you're going to do this because chances are you might have never answered these kind of questions before about yourself and life. And the other chances are that you're not really sure what the answers would be. And why do you need to know them? Again, this is about that self-assessment, the self-reflection that gives you the solid foundation of who you are. When you can keep your story straight, that means it's always going to flow with you wherever you are and whatever environment you are, what setting you are. If you're at a networking event, you got to do your elevator pitch. You got it because you already mapped your story. You mapped your narrative. You know who you are and where you're going, and you know how to get there. If you're in whatever interview you're in, you've mapped your story. And it starts with being able to answer these types of questions. So every one of these questions here relates directly to an interview question. You might not think so, but I'll give you an example. What positive things do people say about you? So this question works in two ways. Oftentimes people have a hard time. They say, well, what's your greatest strength? That's the interview question that this relates to. And they say, well, I don't know how to answer that. I don't want to brag about myself. I feel like that's weird. I don't know. And then they end up answering the question with 10 different strengths, which don't do that, by the way. They ask you for a greatest strength, you give one strength. And so how do you do that if you're having a hard time really understanding, well, what is my greatest strength? Well, think about what other people say about you. What do your friends say about you? What do your family say about you? Are you a good listener? Are you someone that's really trustworthy? Start there and then kind of go out from big and get smaller and smaller and be able to hone in on this. So again, these are some really helpful questions to sort of delve into who you are and what matters to you, mapping out your values. How does your identity come into play with this? More questions, I know, right? Because it's macro level and it's a micro level. And there's so many things to consider when you're thinking about not just your life path, right? But your career path. And some of this is for your life. What principles do I want to live by? So when you figured it out on this macro level, okay, so this is who I want to be and this is how I want to contribute to the world. Then the micro level is, so what kind of job or career path am I going to have that's going to enable me to do that? And think about where you are now. If you have a job already, great, congratulations. If you're about to, whatever your current situation is, what do you like most about it? What do you like least about it, right? What would you change if you could? Where would I draw the line? What are my limits? And what brings me joy, right? So these are all factors you have to consider. Again, I do realize recent grads, I just got to land a job, right? That's the thing on their mind. But if you can allow yourself the time and flexibility to sit back and have all these mapped out and factor that into your decision-making process, it's going to make for a much more fulfilling and confident career process. So when we're talking about career exploration, there are so many different types of tools online for you to be able to go and assess yourself. So you've got Career One Stop, there's Myers-Briggs personality tests, which you can reach out to me and you'll be able to take that for free through the Career Center. That's one of your many services available to you. Are you looking at Clifton Strengths? Are you looking at My Next Move? So again, there are many tools out there. And at the end of the slide deck, there's links to these various resources so that you can engage in that self-reflection, self-assessment process, get an understanding. A lot of these tools will tell you what some of your skill strengths are based on the way you answer questions. They'll give you recommendations for certain career paths, specific jobs, industries that could align with you and your values, again, based on how you answer those questions. Okay, I know you hear this word networking all the time. It's like, well, what does it mean and what do I do and how do I do it? So think about it as a relationship building. That's, I think, a more palatable term. This is meeting people, this is getting to know people, and then staying engaged in that process. A lot of times when people engage in networking, it's a one-off. They took the business card, people still hand out business cards, or they connected on LinkedIn and it's another 674th connection, and they don't remember who that person was and how they met them or what even took place. So what I encourage folks to do is kind of keep a networking scorecard for themselves. And this could be an Excel spreadsheet. It's however you want to maintain this and track of those relationships that you've made. What's the name? Obviously, right? You're going to get their title, where they work, their email, their contact info, but what's the context? So how did I meet them? When did I meet them? What did we talk about? And then keep track of how much you're engaging with them. So a lot of people just meet and maybe it's a one-off and then it trails off and then you have a lost connection, a lost opportunity. So stay engaged. This is a part of having that elevator pitch ready to go. Engaging in networking comes in so many different forms. And as I mentioned before, when you join the alumni clubs and you attend those events that we offer, either in person or virtually, you're engaging in that relationship building process right there. When you're on LinkedIn and you're looking for a job, you see that orange S, right? Click on that. It tells you and shows you what other alumni work at that company that you're thinking of applying for. And then you reach out and introduce yourself and simply say, hey, thinking of applying, do you have any tips or advice? What's the company culture like? So you're really saying, can you help me with this job app, without saying, can you help me with the job app? It doesn't hurt to try. You could get no answer. You could get it's great. Thanks for reaching out. See what I can do. You never know. There's no harm in it. And it's just a simple message. And if you need assistance with that, reaching out and relationship building, what do I say and how I go about it? That's what we're here for. So just talk to Alumni Career Services. We'll coach you through that. No problem. I want to go back to the earlier theory I mentioned, relational cultural theory. Yeah, don't roll your eyes about, I'm not going to get too academic on you. All I wanted to stress was, as I mentioned, when I frame my coaching, my approach to career counseling around some of these theories, this relational cultural one means that you're engaging in a relationship that is reciprocity, it's mutually beneficial, it's mutual trust. And so in that aspect, I want you to kind of reframe networking. And as I said, relationship building means that there's two people involved and it's not just one person doing a favor for somebody else. That's not what it is. So if you can get rid of this kind of old notion of networking, because usually what people are thinking, like, I'm going to this event to network so I can meet someone so they can give me a job. That's pretty much what it tends to be. Like, I want to know what the end result is. Like, what can that one person do for me? Or what can someone do for me? But it has to be, the mindset needs to be, what can we do for each other? And I want you to think about the fact that age and stage and experience does not mean that you have anything less to offer. Okay, so think about what you can also bring to the table. Think about how you can contribute to this relationship that you've just made with this person you've met. Think about how many other people you can introduce each other to. And just what does that mean for, having that more of that ownership? So again, you're not waiting around just thinking and hoping someone's going to help you. You're being an active participant and actively engaged in this process. And that's a really helpful and empowering piece of relationship building / networking. It's kind of the same with the mentor-mentee relationship. A lot of people look at that as, here's this mentee, an empty vessel, and the mentor's filling them up. It's not really the case. Again, it's much more beneficial to both parties when folks are coming with that open mind, ready to help one another and engage with one another. So again, encouraging you to really keep a system here for this relationship building process, and who you met, how you met them, and what does it mean to continue to be engaged with them actively. So we mentioned LinkedIn. You hear about LinkedIn all the time. Recent college grads are just kind of like, I've got 4 connections. So LinkedIn matters. If you have time, in addition to your, Instagram and Twitter and that Snapchat, the ghost one, right? If you have some time and you want to squeeze in another one, LinkedIn is key. So it serves as like a digital business card, a digital Rolodex. I don't even know if people know that word anymore, Rolodex. But it really is your networking tool and connection for professional development and jobs. So you're out there, you're showing that you are actively engaged in this process of your own career and your job search and professional development. It's also employers, they use it to search for people and screen people in the application and process and hiring process. So you do want to make sure you're on there, and you want to make sure it's presented in a professional way. And again, that's something we can definitely help you with. We have a webinar already. We have webinars on that career resource library section about resumes, about how to utilize LinkedIn, how to boost your profile on LinkedIn, how to connect with the Orange Network. So those resources are there and available. And we can definitely help you make sure that you are representing and branding yourself in the best way possible on LinkedIn. I mentioned earlier about taking skills assessments. A lot of those same sites offer you information on what it means to be in a particular industry. So if you had some questions surrounding, well, I think I want to go into mental health because it's a vast field, but I'm not exactly sure what about mental health I want to do. And I'm not exactly sure, what requirements are necessary. What do I need? What kind of qualifications? So these various sort of websites, and as I said, the links are at the end in the resources section of the slide deck. They're there to help you explore just that. So for example, the US Bureau of Labor and Statistics, it's going to be able to tell you what specific job titles are, what roles are typical, even the hours that you can expect to work, what kind of education you would need to be in that type of role in that industry. It's just giving a really good idea and information around the variety of roles that are available that people don't even know about, because they're kind of ingrained with the top lawyer, doctor, engineer, right? And performer, of course, Syracuse. So to branch out, and if you will, and just give yourself some knowledge about everything that's possibly out there, these resources are a great way to explore what's the job title, what's the job function, can I look at the salaries and do a comparison? Absolutely. And again, helping you tap into that network. I mean, for example, if you were listening when Grace was reading off that bio that I need to shorten, by the way, Grace, if anybody heard her say that I used to work at the Smithsonian, you might have been like, what? So exactly my point. Like, what's a degree in museum studies? You can look into these kind of resources here and you'll have that information. So when we're talking about salaries, and you saw, if I go back really quickly here, you see there's a payscale.com, there's salary.com. So these are going to help you compare salaries in different roles and different titles. And what's also going to do is help you understand what you're worth, right? So we've talked about like, what do I want, right? Who am I? Like, what do I want? We talked about that, how to engage in that self-assessment process and self-reflection process to get a solid foundation and understanding of who you are, where you came from, where you're going, how you're going to get there. And then the last piece is, and what am I worth? Understanding that your value, and now I'm using value in a different way, right? Before it was getting to know your values, plural, and now it's what is my value, meaning I want to make sure that I'm getting what I deserve. And so deserve is an interesting word, especially for the youth. So what deserve means what you've earned, in my opinion here. And so what you earn can also relate directly to who you are, how you're portrayed, or how you're seen. And so this is really important for you to have this information and to be armed with this knowledge, really. So when we're talking about salary negotiation, and we're looking at pay scale and salary.com and saying, okay, what's the typical wage here? So just know off the bat that, you know, every employer is going to offer you something low. That's just it's just how salary negotiations go. That's just a start. But it's really important to understand this is the truth of it all in our country, that there is a huge disparity in gender in wage and promotions and titles because of gender and because of race and ethnicity. And we've heard more about it because of what's been going on in our nation and the world. A lot more attention has been put on that. A lot more people are starting to realize the inequity that's taken place, especially when it comes to salary. But a lot of times you just hear about the salary. Women make more, women make less than men. Women make more than men, as if, you know, wishful thinking when I said that. So women make less than men. People of color make less than their white counterparts. You're hearing about it. Oftentimes you don't hear about the fact that this also applies to the title and promotion. And so just be informed. And this is all on payscale.com, and they gather the information from the US Bureau of Labor Statistics and from the census. So sometimes I present this information and people get like upset with me, and I'm like, I didn't do it. I'm not the reason there's a wage gap. It's not me. I'm just presenting this information to you so that you are informed. It's important to understand that for every dollar a man makes, a woman makes 81 cents. Why? Like, what's the rationale behind that? And this applies to when women have the same level of education and the same amount of experience. You still see men making more. And then you see that people of color make even less, and they are overrepresented in lower paying and lower skilled jobs. So what does that mean? There's a lot of people of color who are working in jobs that are not executive level jobs, that are not high powered jobs. And so that's the inequity taking place. And because of that, then they're in lower paying roles. If you're a woman of color, then you win the saddest prize of being paid the least and getting promoted the least and holding the lowest titles. So again, why is she telling us this? Because you need to be informed so that you can advocate for yourself accordingly, so that you can be empowered accordingly. So if you're going into the salary negotiation process, if you're going into a process thinking about, it's been 4 years, I'm going to ask for a promotion. How do I do that? You need to go in being informed. So you want to make sure that you understand what's going on in society, what's going on in the US economic marketplace, and how it's structured to sort of remain oppressive to certain groups of people. And then how are you going to be able to take that information and advocate for yourself throughout your lifetime in your career process? And so that's why I'm saying, just have this understanding. And if you find that you are a person in a position of power or privilege, also understand these facts so that you can help, so that you can do anything that you can to combat this type of disparity based on race or gender or any other type of discrimination taking place. Something to help you be informed is to understand the cost of living, the COLA, in the area where you are trying to live and have a job. And pay scale will help you with that. It's actually kind of a fun cost of living calculator. Fun is subjective, because if you were going to see how much it costs to live in Southern California or New York City, how much a loaf of bread costs, because it even does that, then you'd realize you need to make like $400,000 a year. And then if you did the cost of living calculator to live in Montana, you'd see that you could buy a mansion for the same amount you'd be living in an apartment in California. So use this cost of living calculator, because it's going to help you understand, like, this is the typical rent, mortgage, this is the typical cost of bills. This is the salary I would need to be able to survive. So again, I know a lot of recent grads will just jump in and get a job because they needed a job without having done homework, without having gathered their information, without truly realizing, hold on, hold on now, what's the reality here? Do I want to have 7 roommates, or, do I want to figure out how to do this on my own? So if so, then what do I need? And again, it's important to understand this because workplace discrimination comes into play, and just how are we going to be able to ensure that we're in an environment, again, we're feeling like safe and advocated for and able to advocate for ourselves. And it is something to think about. People in other countries don't have the same taboo around salary, that discussion. A good example is I have a friend who's from Germany, and I do remember a couple of years ago, she asked me how much I made, and I like gasped in shock, right? Like, how could you ask such a thing? And she couldn't understand. So in Germany, everybody knows exactly how much everybody makes in any position. It's just public information. What's the big deal? So you start to wonder, what's going on in America? Why is it so incredibly taboo to discuss salary or know how much somebody's making? And you can think to yourself, these power structures are already in place, and are they there to already keep people oppressed? We don't want people having this information. Knowledge is power. Suddenly we'll have to pay everybody the same thing. Heaven forbid. So something to think about, because I want you to be engaged actively in your career development process. And that means understanding structures that are in place already. That means understanding, how am I going to make sure I'm existing in this space in a way that I'm taken care of and I can take care of others. So yesterday we heard a little bit about what it means to negotiate for your salary. I have a few folks who told me, oh my gosh, I just accepted the first thing they gave me. Again, sometimes people feel like they're in a position of desperation. Don't let that happen to you. And that's part of the point of today, is being informed, having that knowledge, being able to advocate for oneself. And so when you finally have gone through the interview, and I know some folks are thinking like, how did we get to the salary negotiation? She didn't tell us how to write a resume or cover letter or interview. Those workshops are available, and that's something I can go into detail with you one-on-one, no problem. This is more of that, as I said, sort of macro level approach to being able to understand yourself and answer these questions so that you can enter into this process successfully to have your career story throughout the interview and the resume and things of that nature. But I did want to talk about salary negotiations. That's not a typical actual meeting that I have with clients. It's always the front end. So to give you that, just to understand, don't accept the first offer. The employer expects you not to accept the first offer. They expect you to engage in a little bit of a back and forth, not too much. You don't want to back and forth yourself right out of the offer. So it is a little bit of a dance, and it's important to remember to be enthusiastic and grateful, even though you know you're going to counter offer. And you want to have a firm understanding of everything that's involved. It's not just the salary. And again, yesterday we heard a bit about, make sure you know what the benefits are, the vacation, maybe there's a tuition reimbursement, they'll help pay for school. Just get a firm understanding of everything that's involved. It's not always just the salary. It's really important to pay attention to that. You'd be shocked at how much vacation and sick time really matters and plays a significant role in your job fulfillment. And so, great, thank you, and I'll get back to you. Maybe 2 days max. You ask them how long you have, they'll let you know. But when you're trying to make this decision, again, being informed, you've done your market research, you've looked at the COLA, you've estimated that cost of living calculator, and you're going to make that counter offer, which is appropriate, and just, again, you've done your research, so you know what it means to have a good scale and an idea of that. And if you want to think about, well, do I want this job or not? Take a little bit of time again, ask them how much time you have to give them a final answer. And you have to weigh all of your options. So talk to your family, talk to your network, talk to those mentors, the relationships you've made, talk to Syracuse University, the Alumni Career Services, and we can help you with that. And if you decide to decline, always be gracious and grateful when you decline, because you never know what's going to come around again in the future. The world of work is a small world. You never want to burn any bridges. So now I've negotiated my salary and I accepted my job. Here's where people get overwhelmed if they've never had a full-time job before with benefits and don't understand the process. So onboarding, right? That means this is human resources. They're going to email you a bunch of things that say, click here, go there, do this training, fill out these documents, log into this portal, and good luck. And you're like, what? Like, how do I do this? What am I supposed to click on? How do I fill out this W-4? What's happening? So just get an understanding. These are 2 forms that for every single job you get hired for, you have to fill out. So that's for your taxes. You're going to have to do that in order to start working there. So be familiar with what that means. You're going to have to provide these acceptable documents. I know some folks might be looking at me like, this is a no-brainer, but it's actually not true. Because if it's your first time having a job or your first time having a full-time job with benefits, this will be the first time you've been asked to complete the type of documents, to make sure you bring your passport with you the first day, or where's your social security card? Now you've got to call your parents and ask them to mail it to you. Like, you've got to be able to bring these documents with you. So just be prepared for that. You'll have 30 days to enroll in your benefits, and do not let that lapse. You'll get some warnings, some HR warnings, some automatic ones will come through and remind you didn't enroll and stuff. I mean, it's not even legal anymore to not have health insurance. So you've got to, if you don't opt into your work's health insurance plan, you've got to have it somewhere, because the American government's coming after you otherwise. So be informed. You have until you're 26 if you're on your parents' plan. This is the time when I would say, if I was in person, I'd say, show of hands, how many of you on your parents' health insurance plan? And the whole room would raise their hand. Maybe a couple of people not. So for now, if you are on your parents' plan, good for you. And you get to be there till you're 26. If you're not on your parents' plan and you already know the ropes, also good for you. But for those of you who don't, when you turn 26, you'll be kicked off your parents' plan, and you'd better know the difference between an HMO and a PPO and a deductible and a copay, in-network, out-of-network, all super overwhelming. Hey, I've been doing this for 20 years. And when I got hired by Syracuse, I was like, what's the health plan? Gold, blue, and what now? Like, there's like codes for things. So you just got to make sure that you understand what is it. So I've given you these links here. They're incredibly helpful links. You can click on any of them and they will explain point by point. What's the difference between an HMO and a PPO? What does this deductible mean? Do I want to have a higher monthly rate so that each time I go, my appointment is cheaper, right? So am I going to go and pay $400 a month so that I only pay $10 on an appointment? Or am I going to pick a plan paying $100 a month and paying $30 when I go for my copay? These are the things you need to be informed about when you are picking a plan that you need to pick within 30 days of being hired. What else do you need to enroll in? Your retirement plan. So they're offering a 401k. If it's a nonprofit, it's a 403b. You've got to be informed about opting into your retirement plan, because every company has something different. They might do something that's called matching. So if you decide to contribute 10% of your paycheck, the company is going to say, okay, we'll match that and also contribute 10%, or we'll contribute 5%. Find out what all that means. Find out exactly how your assets will be sort of divided. If you're going to be, let's see, for some of them, it just depends on how daring you feel. You could just like, I don't want to go with these kind of up and down stocks and things like that. So just sit down and understand it. Usually what your HR department will do, because they don't have a lot of information, they just need you to fill this out and pick it and be done. They'll say to you like TIAA, here's your rep, here's the rep. You can go contact them directly and ask them. And it's always very helpful. But I'm saying don't be fearful of that. Ask for help, ask for guidance, so you can make these informed selections and decisions, because you are the only person who can click the box and decide, I'm enrolling in this health plan and I'm enrolling in this type of retirement plan. Okay. So I just want, folks are always saying like, well, I'm afraid, what if my age, what if my, whatever the situation could be, what if I don't have enough education? What if I don't have the right skills? Please do understand that the world of work is changing. It's had to. As I said, the nation and the world have gone under a social justice reckoning, a racial reckoning. A lot's changing. Employers are realizing that they can't just view their people as staff. They have to view them as people, their family, their community. So how are we going to make sure that they're feeling respected and are able to be productive? Because for the company, it's always the bottom line. But if they want to get to meet their bottom line, then they need to make sure their people are supported. So don't be fearful. Embrace everything about yourself. Please understand and know that every single person has a value. Everyone matters. There's something. Everyone has a story. Everyone's going to contribute in some way, one or the other. And it's really important for you to be able to feel confident and comfortable and passionate and in that whole entire process. Okay, so why do I have this slide? Because it's very hypocritical of me to talk to people about sharing their story and mapping out their narrative and making sure that they've got a solid foundation if I didn't share my story as well. And I do this because I want to let people know there are many different ways to get to where you're going in life. It is not a straight line ever. It's not a straight up trajectory ever. There are going to be pitfalls, unexpected occurrences. And when that happens, the most important thing you can do is make sure that you're prepared. Make sure you've got these diversifiable, transferable skill sets so that you're always able to turn on a dime and you're able to show the next employer, this is what I've done in one role, so it means I can do it for you in another role, even if it's a totally different industry. Get a lot of folks who want to switch career industries altogether. I was a teacher, right? COVID kind of made me realize I don't want to do that anymore. I'd like to go into marketing. And so it seems overwhelming because I didn't go to school for marketing or I have never worked in marketing. What do I do? Again, career services to help you make that switch, but you can do it. So I want to start off by saying, for my story, I definitely come from a place of privilege. I put that out there straight up. I'm a woman of color, but I still come from a place of privilege. My parents both have PhDs, so I have that sociocultural capital already under my belt, which I'm very fortunate about. I grew up in a very affluent neighborhood in Southern California. And because I've had that upbringing and that exposure to what it means to help others, my parents were both educators working in inner city communities my whole life. I quickly realized that that's what I wanted to do. If I have a position of power and privilege, then I want to be able to give back. And so I chose education as a career path as well. And a large part of my identity is my race and ethnicity, which there are several of them. And a lot of my identity is my culture, which there are several of them. So we largely identify with Fiji, where my dad is from. That's our island way. That's our Fijian family in the bottom right-hand corner. And the island way is to be very communal and to be very community focused and come together in a collective way. And again, that's sort of how I operate for my identity. My dad is Indian from Fiji. That means his heritage is Indian. And thanks to the British, hundreds of years ago, they took Indians to Fiji as indentured servants. And I've never been to India. I wear the clothes and I speak some of the language and I do the dances, but I've never been there because we've only known Fiji. On my mom's side, her grandma was from Trinidad and Tobago, and her grandfather was Hungarian and French. That's them in the top left corner, and they were both deaf. So that's another culture and another community altogether to be part of the deaf community. And they met and married in Southern California at a time when it was illegal to engage in interracial marriage. I'm saying all this because I have multiple identities based on just those points alone, ethnicity and race and culture and hearing abilities or not. And so that's all contributed to who I am in my path. And so that set me on a way to UCLA. I'm not a Syracuse alum. I waited to the end to say that because I wanted to make sure that you all stayed here to listen. But it doesn't mean that I can't bleed orange, which I quickly learned that I'm passionate about doing. I went to UCLA, and I have to say that even having gone to UCLA, I have never seen a more engaged and involved alumni network than I have at Syracuse. I've never seen anything like it. It's phenomenal. So that's another reason for you to remain an engaged alum and take advantage of that relationship building and your Syracuse network. So I went to UCLA. I majored in anthropology. I went straight to grad school at George Washington and majored in museum studies because my goal was to work at the Smithsonian. And it took me 5 months to find a job. So here I was thinking like, what? I just flew across the country to go wear a coat and boots, which this SoCal gal did not want to do. And I didn't even get a job after I went to the top program in the country and I interned at the top institution in the world, right? Because things happen. There's no guarantees in life. So I had to volunteer for a while. I went back to where I interned, asked if they needed any help, and I volunteered for 5 months And luckily I budgeted enough. I was able to take care of myself living in DC, but I finally got that job. No, I don't want you to sit there thinking, oh my God, it's gonna take me 5 months to find a job. No, that's not what I'm getting at. I'm just saying that you got to be prepared for whatever might happen in life. I was so set, I was so sure just because I had this master's degree that it meant that I was gonna, land this job immediately. Not always the case. So just being patient, changing your mindset, just being open to the different ways you might have to go about achieving these goals that you have. And I did work at the Smithsonian and I did design exhibits for 2 years and I loved it. Dream was realized. And I was working as a contractor, 39 hours a week. So something an employer loves to do. They love to hire somebody at 39 hours a week so they don't have to give you benefits and they don't have to pay you that salary once you hit 40 hours a week. But when I was fresh out of grad school, I'm so happy I landed this job with the Smithsonian. I just took whatever it was. And then when the federal government was under a hiring freeze, so we're not hiring people anymore. So you can just stay here as a contractor or that's it. Well, I had to sit down and do a self-assessment, visit those questions. What are my priorities? What's my identity at this point in time in my life? What are my true values at this point in time in my life? I know I wanted to be working in museums forever, but if I can't afford to live in my studio in the middle of DC anymore, pay my own health insurance, not really having a retirement plan that anybody's matching, does this make the most sense? And unfortunately, I had to totally change out of the museum world altogether. And I worked for a nonprofit that had students doing internships in DC, which had me traveling all around the country for a couple of years. And when that was done, I decided to move home. 7 years in DC was a wonderful experience, especially because I thought I was only going to go for 2 years, right? I said, I'm only going for 2 winters. That is it for me. But life happens and I loved it and I stayed. And I ended up traveling throughout Asia. And my friend lived in Seoul, South Korea at the time, working for the military and was like, come work here. And I thought, I just moved back home. Why would I pick up and move again? I don't think so. And my friend said, do you have a job? So I was 29 at the time. Do you have a job? No. Do you live at home with your parents? Yes. Where are we going? I thought you were my friend. This doesn't feel good. And her point of the line of questioning was, then why don't you come live in here or live in Korea, work on the base? Walked into the Career Center, just had a conversation with the director, and he reopened the job posting that had closed the day before. He said, go home and apply. You have 24 hours. And that's what I did. And much to my mother's dismay, who thought her daughter had finally returned home after 7 years, I packed up and was living in Korea 3 weeks later. And I was a career counselor for people who were transitioning out of the military to get civilian jobs. And I did that for 2 years. And then I was a stay-at-home mom in Washington. Like, I'm just looking at this myself and being like, this is crazy. Stay-at-home mom. You want to be a parent? What does that mean for your work and your career and your life? I was teaching online for the University of Maryland, but that's always not the same thing in the eyes of an employer and you're trying to re-enter the workforce. Things to think about. And then I had once I came out of the whole drowning under diapers phase and decided it was time to go back to the workforce, I moved back home. So I live with my folks. Again, did I think I would be doing that at 39, 40? No. Is that the situation that happened? Yes. So those are my 2 kids. And that was my life for quite some time. That bottom one in the middle, that's me cutting a panel for the Smithsonian for an exhibit, by the way. I had to include that because it played such a crucial role in my life there. But those are those 2 little boys there who, and if we're talking about identity, if you couldn't notice, they look a bit different than me. They are my biological children, and I get asked this totally not annoying question all the time. Are you their real mother? Not are you their mother? Are you their real mother? And it makes me be like, so what if I'd adopted them and I'm not a real mom? Like, what kind of question is this? I've come up with some creative responses to quiet people. But point being, again, identity. So my sons are going to grow up as privileged white guys. And that's interesting for me because no one else in our family is like that. My brother presents much more Black and has had totally different experiences than me, getting pulled over in our neighborhood constantly. I don't. And my sons are not going to have a totally different experience than anyone in the family. And so it's really going to be interesting for me to see how their identity plays out. And they see it all the time. They know that, Mom, why didn't that person think that you were our mom? That's heartbreaking, right? I travel with their birth certificates. I never know who's going to stop me on an airplane to say what to me. I'm not the nanny, but people make those assumptions. So it's important to me. Why am I saying this? Because identity matters, my values matter, it all plays a role in who I am and what I do when I'm on my career path. So in my cover letter, where you don't repeat your resume, You can always go into that more with me later when you make a one-on-one. You don't repeat your resume, you tell your story in your cover letter. So I have various cover letters. I'll talk about the fact that I have 2 kids, because if they don't want a working mom at that company, I don't want to work there. I will immediately talk about my culture, my island way, what that means to me. If that doesn't align with the employer, then that's fine with me. I don't want to work there. So again, I'm sharing my story every step of the way. And even when employers ask you, like, why do you want this job? Why do you want this role? Your story, your identity, your values are all a part of being able to answer that question. So you should be able to say with no problem, I want to work in this role at this company because, and for me, it is about helping others, about giving back, which has defined me my entire life. It's shifted and it's changed. Like I said, it evolves, but it's always contributing to who I am and how I go about this job path. If you have some questions you think they might have about you, I pointed it out in my cover letter for this role. I did not go to Syracuse. I recognize that. But you're asking for somebody on the West Coast to build up X, Y, and Z. I could do that for you. So don't shy away from being able to own your story. That was my way of owning my story. I'm not a Syracuse alum, but I can do the job. You don't draw attention to it. You think something might be lacking. Don't draw attention to that. You reference it for 1 second and then you turn it into something positive, which is exactly how you answer the interview question. What needs improvement? What's your skill that needs improvement? Okay. So that was my story. And again, there's a million ways to get to where you're going. Life happens unexpectedly. Did I think I'd be living at home with my boys? No, I don't. Do I love it? Yes, because I'm used to this island way and this island culture, and the village helps everybody and raise everybody. And if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be able to be in a PhD program right now. And, I might not be able to have this same type of full-time experience that I'm having. And all that was made possible because I had these diversified skill sets, transferable skill sets, and I was prepared along the way to be able to show each different type of employer I've had, whether it was a museum, whether it was this internship role, that I could do this position for them. So wrapping it up, because I know we're running out of time here, just have these in mind. Like, you are at the helm of your own future. You are in control of this. It does seem like lost in a big, scary world right now. You've known college for 4 years, a kind of a space, a little bit of being taken care of for 4 years. But don't let that ever make you feel too discouraged. You've got this knowledge now. You can be informed, active, and engaged, so that you can engage in that self-advocacy. You can feel empowered. You have a huge network, whether it's Syracuse alumni, whether it's your community, your family, your mentors. There's so many people that support you, the faculty that you stay in touch with. Please stay in touch with your faculty. It is so important. And just remembering that this career maturation, career decision-making is a lifelong fluid process. So many factors influence it. And that could help you probably not feel isolated or in a bubble when you are trying to make decisions. Just to remember that you've got a network going on here. So many different ways to get to where you're going in life. You heard my story. I got there, right, in a certain kind of way, but always very supported along the way and very grateful and fortunate for that. And so there's no right way to get to where you're going. There's just your way, which is your story, as we had talked about. Don't ever let anybody make you feel less than. Doesn't matter how old you are, what experience you have, what you are, where you came from, who you look like. You are equally important as the next person, and you have to carry that confidence and that belief with you throughout this career development process. And just remember to embrace everything about yourself, your vulnerability, your mistakes. All of it goes along with your bravery and your triumphs. We all have some failures. We all have successes, and all of that makes us who we are. And it all enables us to be able to head toward our definition of success in life, more specifically career success, because that is what we are here to assist you with.
Thank you, Roshni. That was an absolutely wonderful presentation. I very much enjoyed your little pictures and memes all the way through. Thank you so much. And I want to thank all of you for participating and being here through SU Grad Success Week. We're so excited to welcome you into the Orange Alumni family, and we hope to see you very soon at some of our in-person programs.